And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Peter Maxwell Slattery, international best-selling author, ET contact experiencer, and creator of the Jaya Sanctuary, also known as Australia's UFO Ranch. He has appeared on History Channel's Ancient Aliens and Paranormal Caught on Camera, as well as many other international television programs. Peter, welcome back. It's great to have you again.
Jeff, it's good to connect again. Thanks for having me on.
Well, for those of you who did see Peter, or if you didn't, he was here a few years ago, and we talked about how he filmed some ETs in his house, and those videos are still up, right, Peter?
Yeah, they can go to the YouTube channel, Peter Maxwell Slattery, and they can also see the movie for free, Multidimensional, that's linked on there. And also, there's another movie out now as well. It hasn't got that because it focuses more on the crafts, and I'm hoping to do another one at a later date that purely focuses more on the photos and videos that I've got of intelligences.
Your experience started by hearing a female voice in your head. Was that a female ET?
It was, we could say it's very laid because it's a multidimensional intelligence. Now, there was a few things before then, but it's very, we could say, vague in terms of what those contacts were about. So I don't really talk about them, but it had been going on, I think, around 4 because of the home that I was in. But this intelligence was giving me information ahead of time. And it wasn't until 20 plus years later, give or take, I'd actually say just a bit over 20 years later, that I realised that it was a being from Merope in the Pleiades, the actual star itself. This is where it's a bit different from the typical information, and it's more of what we could say an ethereal intelligence, though it has fractal aspects that are physical as well.
Do you think you have a pre-birth agreement with ETs? Because why were they contacting you at such an early age?
It's actually beyond extraterrestrial. I'd say that us and extraterrestrials are the bottom 5% in experiences outside, we could say, or within Source's mind. Then the other 90% of realms that are usually thought form realms, from the way that I can best explain this and what I've experienced, going up to what I describe as the angelic kingdom, before we go into the peripheral of what we could say is God consciousness state. Why I'm saying this is because I do have recall that over time came through an experience where I had a liquid type energy come through my right shoulder and said, "More of you." And I flipped off the couch, and the coming days I actually had flashbacks and information that is like memories here. And why I'm saying that is the beings were actually the Elohim that I can remember the agreements with, which it gets complicated because Shiji, which is the being from the star in the Pleiades, is actually a later on created Elohim fractal aspect. Now, the best way I can describe this is if you can imagine that your body's God and each cell is an Elohim being, and that's your highest expression that goes fractal out within the body of God and is experiencing all lives at the same time, that takes the equation of future and past lives out of the mix. But that's real as well, as we've got future humans and past humans coming through, interfacing with us here even now. So this is where it gets a bit laid. I've done 13 books, 4 of them specifically on the experiences, and I would recommend Ascending because that's condensed a lot of this right down, but it's probably the most punch you'll get of my information, because already we're going off the reservation, as the saying goes.
When you say Elohim, aren't the Elohim the children of the angels that had mated with humans?
I'm going from personal experience, and I will say I've talked to 2 former theologians. One was current, but theologians for the Pope. I've talked to people in a lot of institutions and governments and universities and what have you. The way I'll explain this is what I've told them, and they're aware of this information, which is why some of these people wanted to speak. So the basic understanding is what I just said, is that the Elohim is your higher self, which is a cell of God's body. Now, within that, there are Elohim that regulate different densities of consciousness. That will depend on the color that they're operating in. The ones that I mainly work with are like an electric blue energy that can go from orb form to 7-foot tall light beings that are nor male nor female, or into columns of light. This is actually how I was teleported physically off world to Sigma Orionis, the Pleiades, and Sirius over a decade ago. Now, if you look at it from the perspective of the chakras, each color is actually equating to each density that has different realms within each one. So let's say if you go to each chakra and imagine each chakra is a guitar neck and different strings are different vibrations in each density, this is where densities and dimensions are different things. And I would call those dimensions, and the densities would be sort of the main frame of what the dimensions are operating in each one as you sort of flicker up them. But there's also Elohim that are purely creator beings. And the way I'd explain this is from, coincidentally, my brother told me years ago about Dolores Cannon, and he said a lot of the stuff you're writing about is exactly what she's saying, except I had different come from and it was a lot more condensed than hers. But there are Elohim that are purely creator beings, putting the planets and the stars from the light blueprint, as above, so below, where they are. There's also Elohim councils that basically assist with agreements and what we want to do. And then there's also the aspect that even the angels are an Elohim being, but their job's to stay purely in that form as messengers. So the best way I could condense this down is that all beings, now Elohim most think is God, but it's plural for gods, and it's actually our God self from my understanding, from my experience. But there's also the convoluted aspect of the yin yang, which is sort of the way that is more known as rather than yin yang, that the fallen ones that went down an opposite path wanted to stay in physical form. Now, these are the intelligences. So there's fallen Elohim and positive Elohim. You could look at this as the fallen ones, as the demons. There's a number of ways that you can look at this, but these intelligences created a distorted form of awareness, which some would call AI, that goes from world to world or worlds to where they can stay behind a veil, they can manipulate worlds that are getting to a technological state, and even they don't need the technology, but they start to do it through technology once civilizations start to get to a certain level. And we could say that below that would be different forms of reptilian intelligences and the like, what I call you could call it an Archon network, but I call it the fallen ones or dark masters that are the opposing of the light, but they're void of light, which is why I call them the lower light. But at the same time, they've got the light within them as well. Everything does. This is the duality. And so there is what we could say, a situation of a recalibration and balancing act that's occurring. And extraterrestrials are a part of this. They're no better than us. People are surprised when I say this because they don't have the come from that I do, which is on a soul level, we're all equals. We may have done different things, and we could say different karmic ties and things that we need to work out in our own journey, but extraterrestrials are still ascending to other levels of consciousness. So they've been affected, and some of these are our ancient ancestors or even future offspring that have gone through what we've gone through. And this is really about a sovereignty flip that's going on now. But first and foremost, through self-mastery and ascension, that's very individual, but also collective as well.
You have an ability that most people don't, and that is to be able to create amazing video recordings of UFOs. And I'm wondering, is it due to some pre-birth agreement, or do you have some special genetics that most of us don't?
People would say both. There is some weird things that I've been offered to be tested to a certain extent. I've been offered to actually fly to the United States somewhere and actually be tested even psychically with a lot of these things that people have experienced and seen with me. There was an experience around 2012. I only had 3 or 4 hypnotic sessions. One of them was with Mary Rodwell, and there was not much use in it for me. And I don't say that it's a bad thing. I think it's very useful. In my case, they kept telling who was ever hypnotizing me that Pete knows. That's all they would get, and it was like I was stubborn. But in one of those sessions, the first one actually with Mary Rodwell, they were saying that we will provide this. So before that, I was already investigating some of the most haunted locations and doing clearings. For some people know me purely from that side of things, doing house clearings, clearing attachments, sending energies where they need to go, or getting rid of hitchhikers and things like that. Some knew me from the UFO stuff. But to tie into this here, it's what I'll say is I don't make these videos. I'm filming what I'm experiencing. Even if you go to the Jaya Sanctuary website, you can hear the people there in real time reacting to the crafts. You can see witness testimonies. I've had hundreds of people in my homes around here and when I was in Melbourne and Albury experience this stuff, as well as thousands now around the world when I've travelled abroad. I've just got back from the famous East Seti Ranch because I work with friend and mentor James Gilliland over there. But it's just documenting what I'm experiencing. And sometimes I see these things. Sometimes I don't see them as clearly as what the video does. Sometimes people see it or they don't see it, but they're seeing it on the viewfinder, which is interesting. But this is something where the training that came into this is huge, and I'll explain. With a lot of television networks and what I've done, even with investigators, the last thing they go, I'm going to film this. I've got the best camera, which partly I'm using a Sony A7 II camera now, which is what like Ancient Aliens and a lot of TV networks use for nighttime filming. Again, a lot of my stuff is daytime and in 4K going back to 2014. But when they say, I want to get the best footage, this, that, the other, they haven't experienced. Damn, I forgot to film it. That's what they say nearly every time because they're taken aback. Now, you try and take that to what I've had to go through. I've had to train myself while I'm interfacing to film what I'm getting. Sometimes I'm on board the craft in my mind while I'm even got their perspective looking down on me on the ground. Some of these beings have a consciousness awareness where they can tap into everyone at the same time that's in the group. So you're getting all these different angles and different energies because you're feeling everything symbiotically at the same time of not just one intelligence, you can even feel the craft. So I was getting vertigo at those stages when I started the film when that was going on. But before that, for a few years, just to grab the camera and document what you're experiencing, for most people is the last thing. I wanted to train myself to do that because I was frustrated that if I can't see it, film it and document it and have witnesses, it's not real. That's where I was at. So I think that's part of it because of the stubbornness, if that makes sense.
What do we need to do to be able to start seeing UFOs like you do?
You don't have to even, I say to people, you don't even have to come and see me. I'll give you an example of this. Now, I do something called IC, which is initiating contact. And it's a different form of what Greer does. I wasn't even aware of what Greer and James was doing. People don't know, James Gilliland's been doing this for 40 years, longer than pretty much everyone. But even if you go back to Bertie and Barney Hill, they used to go outside, even during the day, get a circle of chairs and skywatch and see stuff as well. You even go back further than that, and there's people, especially in America, that have been doing a form of CE5 or initiating contact, and I think it goes back millennia. Why I bring up James with this is a very simple technique, and look, it's just intention, but you want to clear the space and be specific about opening up to what you want to open up to. Otherwise, you can get very dark, demonic, reptilian, archonic things come through as well. This is why you've got to be very precise. You can't open up to anything and everything, which is sort of the training I now see that I had before getting to the level that I'm at. Not putting myself better than anyone else, but making sure this is a safe, sacred space. But I'll give you a very simple technique that James Gilliland talked about years ago, and it was actually on the Art Bell show when there was 20 million listeners a night, and it shut down the telephone lines. He was the first person to do this. Art at the time was doing a lot of intention experiments. And you go back to yogis and what have you, and they're saying very similar stuff. We now know this with heart math. And James trained with a lot of yogis and masters after his near-death experience, and then it connected to the extraterrestrial element. All he said was, connect with your heart, think of a loving, joyous memory, and then attach that to the intention to have an experience. It's pretty much all that you need to do if we want to like really simplify it right down. That's why I say to people, I do usually do a bit of heart breathing and then go out and set the intention after I'm doing a clearing. On the workshops, we do a bit more with that to where people can start to see the apparitions come in and the orbs of light. There's even recent videos where 10 meters in front of me, you see the light come in. So we don't have, people were saying fireflies. We've got them in Australia, but not where I'm located. Like there's just no history of that. Plus people are seeing these things light up and they can go up to the size of a basketball and sometimes about 6 foot, and they're about a foot off the ground when they're doing that on the field here. So you don't have to come to me or go and see James or follow Greer. It's just purely your intention. But sometimes you've got an aspect where it's not just extraterrestrial. It could be ultra-terrestrial, which are Earth-based but operating in a higher frequency. And some of them could be ultra-terrestrials that are extraterrestrials. Some of these could be angelic. Some of these could be nature spirits and elementals. Some of these could be us from the past, future. There's even an aspect that you could be creating the experience as a group or individually, which in individually would be a tulpa and collectively would be an egregore, where the group is creating the experience and manifesting it. So there's different ways that you can look at this, which is why the intention in clearing the space is extremely important. And there's free tips and tools on the website for initiating contact as well as clearings as well.
Can you show us some of your video footage and break down which do you think is a ship, an orb, or a being?
Yeah, it's a very case-by-case thing. At the time, it was 10 years plus. It was actually 12, 13 years of documented evidence. This is just a brief sample. This is actually a physical craft. That was Mount Buffalo. This is a ship as well. This Pleiadian. Here's another example of that as well. This is a lot of times what they're doing the craft, meaning they are popping in and out. Mm-hmm. This one here, there was 13 witnesses to this. So this one specifically here, this was at Fern Tree Gully. It was broad daylight. This actually went transparent in the middle like a donut, and then it resealed itself. And quite an extraordinary experience just because the number of people that were there with me, and that's actually a Pleiadian intelligence as well that operates that vehicle. Now, a lot of these move like what I describe as liquid metal. They can sometimes be the consciousness of the being materializing a physical ship to interface with, which it's not. But this is sort of like a liquid metal type saucer craft. So you can see the top of the chimney there, and this is just excerpts. This original footage has been stolen along with other footage that nobody ever knew where a master hard drive was. This was taken in a cabin that I had at the time near Mount Buffalo. Now, a lot of things like that can be lens reflection, dust, what have you, things like that. I'm well aware of these things. I've been studying this quite much for years, as well as Jason Glee's ex-UK Air Force and Aerospace has analysed a large amount of this stuff from UFO only, as well as many television networks and other investigators abroad as well. This was not with the best camera. This is about just a normal HD camera of an object, broad daylight on the outskirts of Melbourne with a friend at the time, or a girlfriend at the time. This here is one of the popular photos of a being that originally it was on the roof. Something was on the roof. I went outside and took some photos. I didn't see this at the time, but this is what was hiding behind the pickup. So that was the cabin I had at the bottom of Mount Buffalo. And these beings are actually, I call them the guardians. There's short ones and tall ones, and they're actually white. They're not grey. But what I will say is that they're actually light beings. And that wasn't revealed until years, a bit after this, I think it was when they revealed that they were light beings. But these are the first beings that started visiting me between 8 and 12. This is just another, what I'll describe as a light ship. So this can sometimes, these types of appearances can be like a Merkaba or the field of the ships. Sometimes they egg vehicles. That's the triangle ship there that was taken broad daylight, which a lot of the Andromedans have from the Andromeda constellation. We have triangular ships as well.
Let me stop you for 1 minute. Can you go back to the one that I would describe as kind of like a ship or a being? Because it's kind of like a pulsing
I get
orb of light in a way.
Yeah. So this is what I'll say. I get a being with this one because look, I can't remember every sighting. It sounds crazy, but I told you before, I've got thousands of videos. I'm having this all the time, a decade, over a decade of this documented. The thing is, a lot of the time you're seeing a light. Now, unless you're telepathically interfacing with that, or unless you're actually seeing it, most of the time, these types of things can be a being in their Merkaba, their light vehicle, the chariot thrown in the Bible. If you replace that with Merkaba, it's their light body, their ascension body, even the rainbow body, where you see Yeshua, Jesus in a rainbow and a lot of art, as well as Patmos and Baba. Now, that's what can happen. Is like, as I say to people looking at a light, they go, oh, that could be a satellite. Well, you can see online the setup I've got with a satellite tracker right above a $5,000 camera setup. And when I'm moving it, you can see what's what. From what I'm being told, a lot of Department of Defense stuff is on those trackers now, catalogued as something else that it's used for, because everything's being able to get documented that's in space now to a large extent. So when you're seeing a lot of these things, they can be light. And if you're seeing light, well, it's what's behind the light. And in some cases, it can be a field of a ship. Sometimes it can be a being in their light body that's an orb, creating that effect where the two opposing tetrahedrons are spinning that much. It gives off the appearance of an orb, but it's spinning so quick that it's just, that's what it looks like. So, yeah, I hope that makes sense the way I'm explaining that, Jeff.
It does. Thank you.
So, yeah, and there's so many different types. There's triangle, cigar. This here is the egg ship. This is a Pleiadian ship. They're usually rainbow iridescent. With like an energy field. This here, this is sort of a popular one. This is actually a lion bang in their light orb that I connect with telepathically. So that's an example as well. This one here is a Pleiadian ship as well. This is more of a high consciousness ship, what I'll describe as a consciousness ship in and of itself. And this here is actually what I filmed first off. This and something else in 2010 got on the news. You could see me point at it then, and it shoots off after I point at it. This is what I describe as the beings appearing and how their crafts can land on you like a ghost, like an apparition. So this is a being called Zoa from Sirius materializing, meeting with me. That's it inverted, change with the contrast and what have you. That is a lion humanoid being. Now, why this is important is because depending if they're physical beings or not, they can get their craft and even themselves and their light body into an apparition state. So for all intents and purposes, just for a moment, I want the viewers to imagine a flying saucer that turns into a ghost. Now, it can land on you while you're in bed, and it can resonate with your pineal gland, and you can now visualize and see looking up on the craft. They can vibrate your body on board the craft and you're physically on it. They could also pull your consciousness out and you experience the craft with your consciousness. They could even put that consciousness into an avatar body to now where you're experiencing it through another body. When I've talked to Native American elders about this, as well as here in Australia, a lot of them agreed and said a lot of people aren't going anywhere, and that's sort of their understanding in some cases of how this works with transdimensional intelligences. I've been saying this for years. I was saying it on television, morning news, and I loop at everyone for years, and now people are starting to look at what I'm saying and not joking too much, for the fact that I came across later when God goes into the tabernacle. If we look at this from a Jewish Christianity perspective, God appears as a cloud. He filled the tabernacle with a cloud, the cloud in the sky that when you go in the chariot throne, or even a cloud by day and a fire by night, it starts to make you think, all right? It's just, I'm not saying this is extraterrestrial God in the Bible, this, that, the other. What I'm saying is it starts to make sense if you look at what I've been saying for years in terms of, yes, some of these beings, you can walk up, touch them, even talk to them or have telepathic communication. But the ones that have got transdimensional capabilities, even angelic, or some of these beings that can appear in human form, or as I've been saying for a long time, some of these beings are masters on other planets that when they meditate, they can copy themselves and biolocate a physical version of them to interface with people on another world. They don't even need a craft. All right. So this is where it gets extremely layered with the whole scenario that I'm describing here. And it's from my own contact experience that I'm saying this. This is a fleet here as well of just orbs. This is one actually here over the sanctuary not long after I moved in, maybe about a year after I got here, but that's broad daylight. That's the source is structured from light. And I've been on these before with Pleiadians as well as Elohim intelligences, that the crafts are just structured from light. Even though they don't need crafts, the best way I could describe this is that it's used in that setting to protect them from outside energies and environments. So hopefully I don't cut myself off here. I'll just go to stop sharing. Mm-hmm. I know that's a lot, but I'm trying to really condense movies, years of information, so much stuff into a podcast, which I'm appreciative for. But yeah, I just hope people are digesting what I'm saying because it's a bit over the shop here.
You told us how to start getting contact. What do we need to do to make sure that we're not attracting the malevolent beings?
It's more of being heart-centered and really having the intention. So I say to people, really think about firstly, why do you want contact? Like, yeah, it's cool to see the craft. And this is a big thing that people are laughing about with me at the moment. I'm like, all right, so you cleared the space. You invited them. I don't summon, I invite them if that's what I'm doing with the group. Now you see the craft and the orbs. Now what? Well, that's where I go into the connecting to your guides technique, to where you project the thought, what thoughts, feelings, visions come back, what have you. A lot of people, they go out skywatch, have a sighting. People that are extremely telepathic, yeah, they'll have some form of communication. But the main thing I'd be saying is, what's your intention behind the contact? Because either way, when you transition from this state, you know it all. That's my opinion, that you know everything once you leave this state. You can merge with God. The mysteries are no longer mysteries. But there's a litmus test. And the litmus test you could use with me, with you, with anybody. How is this information helping me be a better person, be of service, and bring love into my life? If it doesn't meet those three things, I would question the information. Because my contact has been about learning more about me, and really your experiences are about you. But the catch-22 is your party also in the collective, your mission, your purpose. And part of that is also enjoying the human experience. There's much that the human experience has to offer that people want to be in 5D. It's like you've already done all that. You're here being human. You're here to uplift the human experience, to transform the human experience. So the question would be that I've got for people, why do you want to make contact? If you pursue that, make sure you do a form of prayer or clearing, but also be prepared for spiritual warfare. Why I say this is the more effective, and in some cases just generally going down this path, it opens a gate for negative influences, trickster energies, and dark energies that don't want you shining your light in this world. That's just a fact. Now, some people are rarely affected by these things, some people more so than not. Some people even killed in some cases by, we could say, human forms that are controlled by non-human intelligences of a dark nature. But when it comes down to it, these things I believe every human is affected by on a daily basis. Even if you go down to the shop, you drive through a neighborhood where there was a murder, that energy that can be residual sitting in that field can all of a sudden affect you. It can even be somebody having a negative thought about you. It could even be somebody in your presence that's on drugs and alcohol. That's a very minimal way that we could say we can be affected, but this is why it's extremely important to set the intention. And they do not operate by hierarchy if it's truly your spirit guides or team. So often I hear people saying, and I've worked with thousands of people individually, I can tell you it's a common theme that my guides told me this and now my life's gone to crap, or I feel guilty because I didn't do what my guides told me. Your guides won't guilt trip you if you do what they say or not. There's free will. They've got love, compassion, non-judgment, no matter what. But if that's what you're interfacing with, that can be a trap. And I'd advise strongly to reassess that, because usually when that's happening, there's not a good energy associated with it. if it's really positive intelligences, there's usually tears that will come to the body when you're dealing with the Elohim or angelics. The lower light, dark forces can't perpetrate that. They can't. They can be loving, but they can't give you a fake sense of that. Even with positive extraterrestrials, there's a bliss, there's a love, there's a joy, and it's heart centered. If it's not heart centered or you don't get those tears, I'll be questioning to an extent who or what you're interfacing with. But again, what's the fruit from the information? And if you have contact, what's the fruit from the contact experience? Just the basic way to sum it up is probably the best way I could describe that.
In one of your videos, you're asking the UFO to power up, right? And then they do end up flashing.
Yep.
Are the ETs inside of the ship having a telepathic conversation with you? Is that how it's working? Or is there a being next to you that's putting on a light show for you?
It can be both, but a lot of the time it's just telepathic communication, and this is repeatable, as well as the time and direction I say the crafts are going to appear. People have seen me do that directly through a technique that I do. James Gilliland does the same. A lot of contactees. I've even heard Chris Bledsoe can do that as well. So it's something that shows contact. I've even done it for television networks, but they won't show that part, and they won't even show the really good crafts. They'll just show a little dot in the sky.
Why is
so
that?
that's normal.
Why are
Well,
the television...
one case I got told. Yeah, sorry. There's just a glitch between you and I. I was told that by two times. I can't tell you why because I didn't get an answer. One of the other times I was told because if they do it, there's no longer much of a mystery and the show could possibly end because it's all about keeping the mystery going for the show to keep going. So take that for what it's worth. It's a bit frustrating for myself when this has been going on for years and it's documented with myself, James, and others of saying when and where the crafts are going to appear, this, that, the other. They say it's using satellite trackers. Well, I'm doing it broad daylight as well. I could be sitting down with my family and go, there's a ship here. We walk out and there it is hovering above the house. That's how a lot of this happens. So there's always going to be a reason, but that's, what I was told in one of the cases that they can't have the mystery solved to an extent.
Why are the trickster ETs here?
My experience with tricksters, the ones that I'm aware of may not be extraterrestrial from my experience, though I'd say these types of intelligences would be on other worlds. It seems that they've just got a mandate, and some of these can be extremely ancient energies in certain energy areas that have never been in human form. And we could just say that, like Mary Rodwell once said to me, let's say about a negative being, let's say you've got a weed, and the only way that weed can exist is if it takes energy from the trunk of a tree. Now, does it actually make it bad? It's actually sucking energy from the tree, and it's all that it knows to do. Well, we could say maybe detach that weed, maybe there can be something else that's less harmful to another living thing that it can derive energy. There is that capability. That's with the negative intelligence, or some. With the trickster intelligence, it's that, but it's also a different matter because when I've gone to homes, and sometimes I can tell you now, people think they're having ET contact and the home's haunted. It can be intelligent, it can be residual. Some people think their home's haunted and they're having ET contact. Sometimes a trickster is just purely a spirit energy. All right. Take that for what it's worth. It's not extraterrestrial. It's not being human. It's not something that's been human. But the way it exists and sort of a mandate that they operate is they operate and exist off the energy that they get from reactions. It's almost like a negative reaction or a positive reaction fuels this intelligence the exact same way. In terms of, if you respond negatively, it will give you a huge negative experience, maybe the worst you ever have. If you respond positively, it will give you an awesome experience. But it comes back to the litmus test that I said before. How does that experience help you be a better person, be of service, and bring love into your life? And what you'll notice with the trickster is it will be nonsensical. It won't make sense. And a lot of the experiences people have don't make sense. There is the catch-22 that on the odd case, which has happened to me, I was retrieving information and I thought, nah, that's a load of crap. It couldn't be true. It's got to be, something trickster. It doesn't make sense. And then 1 year, 2 years, 3 years later, 20 years later, it makes sense. And that could be the fact that my consciousness wasn't at a certain level to understand the information. So it's something that I say with anything that you don't understand, put in the grey bucket. And with trickster intelligences, it will be nonsensical. But why podcasts like yours are great and what people are doing talking about this is because everything is it's not yes or no. It's not black or white. The shade of grey in the middle, which is so many variations, are the buts or the other answers to what logically for some people might be, well, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. That grey area is vast and huge.
Have they ever revealed to you in a telepathic conversation what their intentions are with humanity?
There's slight variations of intentions depending on the race or the intelligences. As a group collective with those that are in line with the awakening healing of humanity, the way that I would best describe it comes back to a book that I did, I think in 2012 or 13, called Operation Starseed. And at the time, it was a concept for me to understand the very in-depth stuff that we've started this conversation with, was that beings have come here because we could say that there's somewhat a stunt or an energetic block going on within Source and an aspect of Source through the fallen ones that have created an experience that what's happening is they're not breaking universal law to an extent, these negative intelligences. They're working behind the scenes through elites, through AI, through a cabal, putting a structure in place where we're disconnected from the family unit. We're driven by the bottom three chakras of got to get the bills paid, got to work, stop enjoying the human experience, and we're on a repeat mode. And this is what's happened to many other worlds as well. So what's happened because of this manipulation to a certain point, you could say that those that are in service to others have come up with the concept going, right, well, they're not breaking universal law, but they're directly influencing other worlds. What can we do about it? How about we incarnate? We put a pinpoint of our awareness into a human vessel and we actually change it from within by playing a part within humanity, which also doesn't break universal law because rules are being bent. So there is an aspect here that those that have the experience and that have put up their hand have come here to help humanity elevate itself. But there's a point I'm at with this that I don't see good or bad. And it's not saying I endorse the cabal are doing and the reptilians and this, that, the other. Though I'm sure there's good and bad in everything. But that's what I'm trying to get to, is there's good and bad in everything, to the point where this is really about not just our own soul evolution. This is about Source's evolution, that it is good and bad. There's a duality. We all have that duality of, if we want to perceive positive and negative. But think about in your own life when you've overcome trials and tribulations, things that you've experienced, you didn't know that you had in you to get through situations when those situations were put upon you. My conclusion to this day is that we're on a treadmill in God's mind, and it's a game, and it's up to us how we play this game and what we experience. There's no right or wrong, but we're in a simulation within simulations within simulations. And this is all about soul evolution. It doesn't make it okay, again, a lot of this dark stuff that's going on, but that's part of the game of working through it, of picking up on it, of being your own sovereign being, of making your own choices and decisions, and not looking up to something else as if it's better than you just because it's coming from a different state of consciousness and awareness. The place that I like to remind people, and they might want to do this while I'm speaking, if you close your eyes for a moment, you can hear me. Now, you're observing my voice, but there's a place behind that where you're witnessing you observing my voice. If you go back to that place that you're witnessing, observing my voice, that is where you're going to start to understand you can interface not just with angels and ETs and spirits, but it's also where you can commune with the divine. And that should be the intention, to bring that through you each and every day and allow it to work through you. That's been the message from them. It hasn't been about welcome to the Galactic Federation, this, that, the other, though. I can tell you from a United Galactic Council, there is these types of things out there, and we're on the precipice of being introduced for those that are at that level, that there are other beings in existence. Don't get me wrong, all that is real. And also, we're already working with some of these beings through a type of space force that I mentioned way before Trump even brought a space force into existence. And there's the SSP and these different things. But I'm talking about the stuff beyond that. And that's what most ET races are wanting to elevate to and experience, is these higher states of consciousness, even though they're in whatever density and dimension of consciousness. This is the stuff they're trying to get to, which I'm interfacing with, and many are, not just me. So the message is very simplistic of being the best you, making of the experiences what you can. And it comes back to the litmus test. How does it help you be a better person, be of service, and bring love and joy in your life? That is a litmus test of not just the fruit of information, but the fruit of your soul journey out within Source.
Do you think that we'll ever become something like a Star Trek society where we'll be traveling the stars with other beings?
That's already happening on a non-public level. I know that for a fact. For it to reach a public level, there's so many factors to do with that. It could be a slow rollout disclosure. I said years ago, it could be a 50-year rollout. We're also got a situation that if we got over our differences overnight and bickering and realize that we're all brothers and sisters, we could actually bring that into manifest and actually go beyond that to the stuff that I'm talking about. We could actually do that overnight. Our consciousness, our vibratorial state, our intention and our emotions and our moods are affecting this whole thing and how quickly it plays out.
Have you had face-to-face contact with any of these beings?
Yeah. That's been out there for years that I've gone into. So it's a layered situation, because what got me was that it's not just one intelligence. There was the beings that are the white greys that I saw in the early days that I didn't understand. I didn't think they were angels or demons or ETs. I didn't know what they were. But it was around 2011 that these blue orbs manifest into what I was told were the Elohim, and then I interface with them regularly. Whether it was a ball of, like, it can be anywhere from like a golf ball to baseball size orbs, sometimes basketball, but they'll come in usually as like wispy apparition forms with a slightish bluish white light. They at times were 7 foot tall type light beings that usually you'll see electric, like lightning in my field, in my presence, in the room, in the house, outside before they appear. Shiji, which is a being from the Pleiades that I was referring to as that female voice that I didn't learn for years who that was, there was 6 months of on and off physical contact with her. And it continues. It's more telepathy. But the convoluted situation is that I found out years later there's another aspect of me. Take that for what it's worth. There's beings from Sirius, Orion, mainly that I'm interfacing with as well, physically. So in some cases, there has been people experience these beings physically in their presence, like another human. There's been cases where it's more like an apparition, or they just blissed out with energy and they experience that with me as well. And I've also been taken off world in an orb through the Elohim, going from an orb into a column of light back into an orb and then engulfing me to where I appeared in 3 different worlds over a course of what felt like 15 minutes, but they said it was about a second. And I was taken to ancient off-world sites. One was a stone circle, one was an obelisk, and one was a pyramid, to where information was integrated and downloaded upon me in Orion, the Pleiades, and Sirius. And then I was teleported back. And it was because this stuff had to actually be done physically. in terms of affecting my field, the information being stored in the field. I had to physically visit these places. It couldn't be done astrally or etherically or through telepathy. It had to be a physical thing. And I've been on board many different variations of ships. But the thing is with this as well is that some of these ships are just purely created from consciousness. They're not, there's a conscious being that's creating a construct in some cases for you to interface with it without flipping out. Very much like a sleep paralysis scenario, I'd say unless you're having a very dark dream and then paralysis, that which would be a type of attack, sometimes the paralysis can be you coming back to your body from an astral state, or then putting you back in your body after being on a craft, if they've taken you in that state. Or it could even be your team freezing you so you don't flip out and turn around to see what's going on, because some of these beings, they look hideous. But some of these beings are absolute masters and loving beings, and just the physicality of them, if people aren't heart-centered or can't observe, they can flip out and freak out. So it's been a combination of physical and non-physical contact. Predominantly these days, it's more through telepathy, seeing the crafts up, as well as they will come in an apparition form on and off. This can be due to a number of different reasons, especially with the sanctuary, the monitoring that's going on, which I know agencies and governments are looking at everything that's going on here, which doesn't stop the contact. It just is more adaptive to group collective contact than what it's been for me personally.
Would it be accurate to say that you are a starseed and your mission here is to raise the frequency of humanity in the planet? And if so, what are you going to do once you do leave this planet? Where are you going next time?
What you could say that. My thing with this is that, and I've got starseed tattooed on my back. Don't get me wrong about what I'm about to say. I'm just a projection of your illusion. I'm another aspect of your consciousness. And my thing with this is that I know that I am here, and when I leave here, you do have the option of experiencing other worlds, other realms, but also being of service to others if that's what you choose, to the point that you can divide off from this universe and create your own universe with its own planes and dimensions and the Elohim within that as well, going out within it, which is where I had to stop in one experience. So my thing for me is just to educate people, to bring out the best in them, to help them move beyond trauma, wrong conclusions, judgments, their own preconceived notions on whatever it is. Because self-mastery is the key to this. That's what I was into before the paranormal, the UFO stuff, everything, even though I'm a lifelong experiencer, was if you have self-mastery, you've got it. When you understand this, you realize that you've always had contact with ETs and spirit guides and angels, because it's usually through thoughts, ideas, epiphanies, concepts, and visions and dreams that occurs in. But if you don't have self-mastery first, I'm not sure how you, almost not saying you personally, but I say to people, you as a civilization are going to deal with contact. Because what happens is now all of a sudden something from a higher state of consciousness is here, and you look up to them, and they could be ripping you off with trade deals, with information, make themselves become gods to you. If you've got self-mastery, you start to see that everything is one consciousness interfacing with itself, that you start to become the creator of your reality. The master creation of all is being a creator being in physical form, experiencing here, and now creating the reality that you want from a standpoint of the illusion of being separate from that one consciousness. That's more where I'm coming from beyond the ET stuff. But the ET stuff is more what I would describe as a conduit for people to get into the come from that I'm talking about. Not to believe what I'm saying. I want people to use their own discernment and follow their heart. But this is why I say, whether it's ETs or angels, if it's real information, and I'm not trying to belittle anyone whatsoever, it will be about you empowering you and realizing the light that you're looking for has been internal the whole time, and you don't have to look anywhere. It's just how that's connected with and brought out for you to start being the creator being is in different ways for everyone.
What practical tips can you give us for self-mastery?
To start off, I'd say that it's being conscious of your thoughts, aware of your thoughts. Self-mastery is being in control of your actions. In terms of actions, You could say maybe not the thought, but what's happening is people have these thoughts and they think that these thoughts are them, or they identify with these thoughts. Mujia, a great teacher, I believe he says, thoughts are like clouds. They come, they go, they dissolve, and you're the sky. All right? So if you look at it from this perspective, you've got a situation that if you can just become conscious of your thoughts and know that they'll come and they'll go, good times come, they go, but realize that balance is key with this of being a physical yet a spiritual being, because you're here to experience the physicality. That is a start, as well as, yes, meditating, eating well, and what have you. But I would say communing with the divine each and every morning at the very simplistic level of, when you get up, just sit and be with God. Pray, give thanks. You could do affirmations or gratitude, incantations, what have you. But I'd also invite people to ask that one consciousness that we're all a part of, that is God source created, depending on who you are in your terminology, giving thanks to it, but asking it to work through you to assist others, and that you accept the abundance that comes with it so you can keep doing it. Because what I can do, nobody else can do the same. We can do similar things, but every person, whether they think it or not, they've got, through their experiences, their knowledge, their wisdom, they've got things that they can do in a certain way nobody else can. And that is the gift to the world if you want to step into it, if you can open up to it. And it's going to take you into very uncomfortable places, because, as we could say, Joe Dispenza says, you create in the unknown. That's where you're hitting it. And there's two things that will stop people from doing that: fear of the unknown and fear of security. But if you're coming from the heart and the heart's pulling you don't understand it, I would say go with it. But there is a fine line between excitement and anxiety. Anxiety would be more like the heart going down into the stomach, like you're going down on a roller coaster. Excitement would be coming from the heart space, taking you into unknown energies, almost being giddy like a teenager over a party or a date or something like that. But the simplistic thing of all this, and I say to a lot of people when they're in situations that their partner's not an experiencer or they're worried about their kids, I say, look, if you'd give the shirt off your back to help another human, you don't even need to know anything I'm talking about. Because the simplistic point of all this is to get back to the basics of just being the best you, to be of service to others, to be loving, to be joyful. So we could just skip all the self-help books and all the BS and everything that I've just said. If you can get to that, that's the message. That's the core principle of this. And knowing that we're not all perfect, but in that, we could say imperfections is the perfection. That's what makes it perfect. You. Just be you.
Why do you think we reincarnate over and over again? Is it to become our best selves?
This is where it gets very convoluted with, and I will say I don't have the answers to everything, but from my perspective, there is a situation of that. There is also the situation within Source of, we hear soul traps and ideas of that. What I would say to people is follow the love when you transition. I've done this holding somebody's hand, and I guide people when they're transitioning in this way, that if you follow the love, meaning the love where the tears are, you bypass it all. There is no construct, even if there's the illusion of the trap is co-created with you, and it's part of an experience to get through that. It's all an experience, and it's like a grain of sand in time, this whole situation. So there is situations that if you think a soul trap is real, the illusion is real, you're going to be part of that. The situation of this is becoming the best version through experience. Now let's pull it back to a multidimensional level. Remember I said at the start, and I'll use the spider web analogy or an octopus. The head of the octopus is your God self. actually, we'll use the spiderweb version because it's probably more better these days for what I'm trying to explain. The core of the spiderweb is the higher self. Each bit that goes out from that spiderweb and then another intersecting point is another experience, and it goes out and it continues. It's all happening at the same time. Some could be created later, which are further out on the web. The ones that are closer in are more that's happening simultaneously. This is why when you're dealing with some of these intelligences, even if there's physical interfacing, there's a point that you have questions. And then what happens is there's a point where you merge consciousness. There's no questions anymore. It's like for me, I don't have much questions because when I merge with source, it's beyond the questions that I once had. You're in it. All the questions are sitting within that. So this is where it takes it beyond individual reincarnation cycles, which, yeah, you've got that. If you look at that as one of the strands going out, basically, if you want to look at this to linearize it in some method. But it leads to a point of ascension, all-knowing, and then what do you do from that point, which you can be of service to others or you can create your own universe. I'm sure there's 100 billion other things I'm not mentioning that can happen from that state as well. I'm only talking about from my reference with this. So think about in your own life, not repeating mistakes, not repeating patterns. You're dealing with that on a soul level that's so much bigger that part of this is about. And some get this, some don't. And those that don't, they're not meant to at this time. They can be reliving out old patterns, wrong conclusions, judgments, and sorting that out as well. But the thing is, people are met where they're at, multidimensionally and physically as well. But the God self knows all this. So I think it's really just a case-by-case basis, a really huge grey area there, Jeff.
Are you saying that there isn't a soul trap, but just a person's belief in it will trap him here for a while?
The belief in it will allow them to experience that. It's like I'm not even real, but on the level of real, sitting here, coming to visit me, or even talking to me now, I'm real. So it's on what level are you operating at conscious-wise, and what level are you aware that this is how it all works? Because once you're aware, now the blinders are off and you're aware. But there's a purpose for that. Just like the darkness have their purpose. You could put any situation in your life that something doesn't work out for you as it's a reptilian, it's an archon, this, that, the other, and some people do that. But we could look at some of those situations as situations to level up and to rise to the occasion, rise above them. Like, not every day, everything's going to be perfect. And what's happening, Art Bell said this many years ago, we're hitting a stage of instant gratification generation. And I think we've had many generations recently that are part of this instant gratification. There's things with source where your path in life, things just work out. But there's also, again, in the grey area, things that you have to work for, things that you have to study for, things that if you really want it. As an example, it took me 3 years to go through the permits to open this place. It should have taken 3 months. But I had visions of this place 15 years or give or take before it that I knew this is what I would be doing. Before I knew of Greg, before I knew of James and what they were doing and everyone else, I knew this is what I was to be doing. Now, the hard work, the hours, the blood, sweat, and tears literally that I've had with this place, nobody's seen. But it's what I was meant to be doing, and I wanted to be a vehicle for Source to do it. You take that own analogy in your own life. That is the analogy that you could look at the existence of things that don't work out, a soul trap, negative entities, influences. The amount that these things happen to me, I've been blessed, though it was a burden in the beginning, and as I say, there's always blessings in burdens, of the situation I've been choked, I've been picked up, I've seen a door ripped off its hinges, I've seen stuff that people do not want to see from the dark side of the universe. But from the amount that has happened, it's given me an opportunity to experiment with clearing and techniques that work. Because if you're not dealing with this stuff on a daily basis, like, and I don't want anyone to, but what I'm saying is I've got to be able to do things and see it as boot camp, every experience as a boot camp. And that's just part of my experience here. But it's on the level of imagination that this is all created. Imagination is creation. I'll give you an example of this. It's a beautiful example. I don't want to out this man's book too much because I think people need to read it. Dr. Ibn Alexander, I think it's called Proof of Heaven. When he first transitioned, and I think it was meningitis, something like that, he died or what have you. He was a big person that said, you know, this doesn't exist. I think he was a brain surgeon as well. Don't quote me on the qualifications, but people can look that up. When he first transitioned, he's in a state where he could see like these reddish, murky walls, and there was like, he didn't call them this, but they were like reptilian and grey faces is what he's describing. When he was able to get to a situation where he changed his frequency, all of a sudden that realm disappeared and there was different realms that appeared. It's all frequency specific is what I'm trying to say here. He changed his thought. That which could have been a trap was no longer a trap because he wasn't frequency specific with it. This is why I said, if you follow the love, you will skip all that. It's not frequency specific. So when you look at that, this is all television stations in God's mind. Your controller, your remote to see what you want to see is through frequency. It's through feeling. And if you connect with the heart, you can bypass the crap, is what I'm saying.
Peter, what are you working on that you want people to know about?
It's just a sanctuary these days. I do a bit of teaching at events. If I go abroad, I do some of this sort of stuff. I don't really have a plan like I used to with books and movies and this, that, the other. It's sort of what does Source need done now and what will I get to, and that's where I'm at. So, pardon me, for a lot of people, if they can't get to the sanctuary, there is an online course. There's books, there's movies, there's a lot of free content if they go to the website, hours and hours of presentations and talks and me going into the rainbow body, the Merkaba, different experiences and what have you. A lot of evidence as well and footage that people can see. But these days I'm just all about just being the best version of me and hopefully rubbing that off on the people that are around me and bringing some joy to the Earth human experience because I think we need it while educating about who we are, what we are, and I'm still trying to figure that out too, but I think I'm pretty close to it compared to most, but I think I'm not even 1% there out of 1 billion% to tell you the truth. But yeah, as long as I can make people think I'm doing my job, mate.
What is the name of your website?
There's petermaxwellslattery.com. There's also jayasanctuary.com and esetiaustralia.org. So ESETI Australia is basically based out of Jaya Sanctuary, which is like a connection, even though I run everything myself from James Gilliland. It's sort of where we work as a team. But yeah, even if you go to either one of those websites, they're interconnected to all the other websites as well. And the social media links and everything are there as well.
Peter, before we finish up, can you give us one more positive message?
What I would say as a positive message is to let your light shine. And what I mean by this is going back to what I referred to earlier. You can do things that nobody else can do in the same way. Forget about the external validation. Forget about rocking the boat. If you're coming from the heart and just being the best you, that's what this world needs right now. It just needs you to be the best you. And it doesn't mean you're not going to screw up. You will screw up, but just be you. And those that are meant to be in your life will respect that. Those that don't, they're just not on the level you're at this time, and that's fine. But just be you.
Peter, thank you for your message, and thank you for coming back and being my guest again.
It was a pleasure, Jeff. It was a good time. Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.